Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of Experience Your Potential. I am your host, Stephanie McKidd, and today we are joined by Tanya West. Tanya has had her hands in the health and fitness industry for several years. Going through cancer at the age of 30 years old changed her life forever, and she committed herself to learning all about health and nutrition, specifically cancer prevention. Now, as a certified holistic practitioner, she wants to help you feel healthy and stay healthy and to supercharge your life. Before we jump right into our episode with Tanya, I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for all of your private messages and positive feedback. It makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. And of course, if any of you have that little bit of extra time, I would really appreciate you heading over to iTunes and giving me a review. The more reviews I can get there and the more subscribers I have, the more people I can reach, and that's the goal. So, thank you so much again, and now let's get started. So, welcome, Tanya. It is so nice to talk to you today. I feel like I've known you forever. Your name just keeps kind of popping up as my life goes on, and finally I'm talking to you in person, and I can't wait to share your story with my listeners. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm as well, I feel like I've known you forever. So it's so nice to connect like face to face.
Yeah, for sure. So I, obviously I just did an introduction of you, so they have a little idea of what your story is, but can I get it in your words, where you were and where you're going?
Yeah, well, so in my 20s, and going back just a few years, of course, sick for a long time, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. I was very, very tired, had itchy skin. Like I said, all the doctors were like, exercise more, like take antibiotics, like they didn't really know what was wrong. So I was getting very, very frustrated. And I got to the point where I was having trouble breathing. And so I ended up in the emergency. Someone did an x-ray and they finally found a large mass in my chest. So I ended up having a diagnosis at 30 with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the tumor was pretty massive, 10 by 20 centimeters in my chest. Goodness. So it had, crazy. And it caused my lung to fill with fluid, so I had trouble breathing because I was only functioning off of one lung, basically. So I went through the traditional, like, chemo and radiation. I didn't know I had any other options at that time, so I just did what the doctors were telling me to do and made it through all my treatments. And then my mom, who had been diagnosed with breast cancer a few years before me, had gone on and off with breast cancer. She was okay, then she wasn't. Another lump had come up. So basically, when I was done my treatments, her cancer had come back. So there was no time to celebrate and being done because my focus shifted then to my mother and helping her. And unfortunately, she passed away a year later. And after I had radiation on my chest because my mass was in my chest. And I had a lot of fibroids coming up. I had a fibroid at 19 and they told me it was like nothing to worry about. But I kept getting more and more lumps. So after my mom, breast cancer, and my cancer history in my family, I chose to have a double mastectomy and ended up having 3 reconstructions over the years because things just weren't quite right. So definitely a bad thing. Cancer has also touched my dad, had prostate cancer as well. And he passed away from heart failure 6 years after my mom passed. So that's like a brief overview of
my goodness,
the tragic times that I went through. But I'm happy to say it's been 13 years since I was diagnosed, so I'm all good.
Awesome. So when you were dealing with the chemotherapy and such, how long was that process? I'm assuming it's different for everybody, but
it is different for everyone. Like depending on what stage you're at. I think I was stage 2B. Stage 4 is very serious, spread, metastasize to the rest of your body, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I went through 6 months of chemotherapy, and it definitely felt like it was never going to end. because you're stuck in it. You have no choice but to keep going forward. So it's just like a countdown of how many more treatments every other week like I had to do. And a few of them I missed because my white blood count was too low, because it's basically knocking down your immune system. So I've learned so much since then, and now it's like a blur looking back, but it does take some time to go through it, and your body is definitely affected by all the drugs that they're giving you.
Absolutely. So you were saying like it was quite a large mass. However, you said you were only in stage 2. So how does that does it matter? Does the size matter as much as just how it ends up getting into your system? Like, how do you go from a stage 2 with a huge tumor like that and get to stage 4? Like, do you understand the cycle of that?
So I don't think it necessarily matters the size of the tumor. It depends on what type of cancer you have and how aggressive the cancer is, like how fast it's growing. Some people have a very aggressive cancer, so they will be treated differently. And also, like how I mentioned, stage 4 is basically the cancer has spread, so it's not contained as one tumor. It could be multiple places in your body, throughout your body, and that's, of course, the worst scenario. We wouldn't want that to happen to anybody. So
yeah, absolutely. Just to clarify a little bit, like the fibroids that you were dealing with, those are lumps that are benign, correct? Or
that's right.
So it's best to not have them in your body because they could turn into cancer at some point, or
they could. I mean, I think there's different variations of fibroid, but like I said, I had a lot that were coming up after I had radiation on my chest, and that is something that can happen from radiation. You can actually cause radiation.
Really?
And a lot of people, that's not something that they really advertise out there.
Totally, yeah.
But I was having a lot of pain as well with the fibroids. So the doctors said, like, it's okay. They can do like a biopsy basically on every fibroid that comes up and test it and see what's going on. And I just, after everything I had been through, I didn't want to put myself through that. I saw my mom go through it for 6 years. And after I had the double mastectomy, they examined all the tissue that they remove, and they had told me that there were probably lumps in there that could have caused me problems down the road. So that made me feel like I never regretted my choice, whether they told me that or not. And I'm definitely not recommending that anyone choose to have a double mastectomy out of fear. It was the choice that I made for all the stuff that was going on in my life. And I definitely went through a lot of pain. It's not an easy way to go through mentally as well. But it's all good now, and I don't have any regrets about it.
Yeah. So leading up to that time, you were saying how you felt exhausted, and that was kind of like the main thing that you seemed to focus on. And then all of a sudden, it sounded like all of a sudden you couldn't breathe. Was there a long period of time there that you were wondering what was wrong and just kind of brushing it aside, or were you seeking information from doctors that whole time and not getting the responses that you wanted, or just not getting anyone to take you seriously?
Well, I think we never want to admit that something is wrong with us. So when I started out, probably, I'm going to say 3 years before I was diagnosed, and I probably had the cancer long before that. You don't know how long it's been there. But I kept getting more and more tired, and I would work all day, come home from work, basically lie on the couch and sleep. And I kept thinking, well, I'll go to bed earlier, then I won't be tired tomorrow, and that never fixed it. And then it turned into like night sweats, and I had really itchy skin, which is a sign of Hodgkin's lymphoma. I would wake up in the middle of the night and scratch my legs so bad, like they would bleed because such a deep itch. You just can't get it. And so I did start seeing the doctors like over those years, and I remember being told, like, I'm so tired, and they were like, well, you need to exercise more, and I'm like, well, I have no energy to
Yeah, right.
like, I don't think that's it. And I had gone to a dermatologist for the itchy skin, and they were like, take cold showers and give me all kinds of creams and lotions, and that didn't work. And I started seeing a naturopath actually as well, and I feel like they were close. They were doing a lot of blood work. And I remember it was probably like a week before I went to the emergency, I looked at my own blood work. And there was one alkaline phosphatase, and it was out, way out. And of course I Google, you know, look on the internet, what does it mean? And it actually said tumor marker.
Wow.
And just a few days later that I found out that I had a mass in my chest and a large tumor. So if I could give anyone advice, definitely, like, in my 20s, I'm probably still considered like quiet and soft spoken, but you have to speak up for yourself and keep pushing. I went to the when I was having trouble, I actually ended up at a walk-in clinic, and I said I had trouble breathing, and he listened to my chest for like 2 seconds. It was like, you have a chest infection, here's some antibiotics. And I don't think that's it. And I ended up going to my chiropractor. My chiropractor listened to my breathing and was like, you need to go to the emergency.
Wow.
And I'm like, how many people do I have to go through to finally find an answer? And it was definitely a lot of people I went through. So I've learned I really need to speak up even more.
Well, and that's crazy too, is the person that you would expect to tell you to go to the emergency would not be your chiropractor. That's the last person I would be like, can you listen to my lungs for a second, you know? And it's so great that you had someone in your medical history life that was willing to do that extra second of work.
I know.
Because I'm the same way going, I mean, it's good and bad sometimes depending on what you're going for, but going to the walk-in clinic, because I can never get into, like, I'm always promised by my personal doctor that if there's something serious, just let me know, I'll fit you in. That never, ever happens. Even when I had my infant, like, she promised, if there's something serious that you're really worried about, I'll fit you in. Not once have they ever fit me in. And so I always get to this walk-in clinic that I get in very quickly, but it's like 25 seconds in and out. And I mean, he gives me what I want. And where I'm lucky is that I am the type, like you obviously are now. Yeah. You do your research before you go, and you know what you want. So you just ask for it and they give it to you. But he just, like, you know, he asks the symptoms, and it's, you know, leaning towards one thing. He doesn't take my blood pressure. He doesn't take anything. He's just like, well, most of the signs lead to this, so take it, and gone. And it's just mind-blowing to me, because I know the last thing I went into, I did my research too, and I mean, there's lots of things that it could lead to, but the majority of things, the symptoms were for something that's nothing to really be worried about. You just need a little bit of antibiotic. And he went that way too, but I read other stuff, like, I mean, it could be a precursor to cancer, it could be a precursor to this, and like, why didn't you ask me a few more questions? Or at least, because I knew, but he didn't know I knew, that these are other things that you could be thinking about if this doesn't work. So it's mind-blowing to me how little time you get, because if you're not one of those people that does the background research and is like, well, if this doesn't work, it could be a little bit more serious, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, then I don't know, like, you could just end up in something that could have been so easily fixed so much earlier. So I feel your frustration. It's crazy. And good for you for just asking more people.
I know, like, I just kept pushing. I knew something was wrong with me. And the sad thing is that people around me were thinking I was losing my mind. They're like, you're going crazy, you're mental, like, there's something wrong with you mentally. And I started thinking, well, maybe I'm really nervous. Maybe there's something, I'm really stressed out. And, you know, I didn't know. And I got to the point where I didn't even want to go out of my home, because I had such itchy skin, like, my clothes, my skin would irritate me. I didn't want to have any clothes on, basically. Like, if I had to go out somewhere, I knew I was going to be frustrated. I'd start sweating. And, you know, I I am, like, it's sad to say, but I was thankful for a diagnosis because I finally knew what was wrong with me after all those years.
Absolutely.
And do something about it. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Considering that both your parents had some scares with, well, seriousness with their cancer, was it something that you had checked yourself for previously and just it wasn't there yet? Or, you know, like, because did they have the cancer when you were younger, or did this kind of all three of you end up kind of having to struggle with it at the same time?
I hadn't had cancer in my life like in my 20s, other than my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more like they found a lump, they said I have breast cancer, so now I gotta do chemo and stuff. And in my 20s, I didn't know much about cancer. Like, I knew my mom was going for chemo. I'm like, okay, well, you know, I don't know what I can do for it. And then myself getting diagnosed, my focus was just like, I need to get better and heal myself. And it wasn't till my mom was diagnosed again after I went through cancer, that's when I was like, this is serious. What can I do to help my mom? Now I get it. I've been through it myself. I see how chemo did to me. And my mom was never one to talk about how she was feeling. She was like a kept her emotions in type of person. And so I didn't really know what she was going through till I had to go through it. And I had asked to be tested for the gene, the breast cancer gene. And they felt that I didn't have enough cancer history in my family to test me, so they wouldn't. Way.
Like your immediate parent, and that's not enough history?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they're like, that's not enough people. And like, I'm pretty sure my aunt in England had it as well. And like, no, you know, of course you go to the States and pay for it or something, but it's just crazy. But I just ended up choosing to have the double mastectomy anyway, because that was my choice at the time for me. So.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go into, so you get that diagnosis, and like, what are your feelings? What were those initial things that went through your head? Was it, I'm gonna beat this like tomorrow? Like, I just feel like, you know, like super confident, or were you just like, what the heck am I going to do? Or like, what was going through your head?
Well, the first thing was thankfulness, which, like I said, is a sad thought. But I was like, finally, everybody, I'm not mental. Like,
I was right.
Answer, you know, like proof, you know. And it was a whirlwind that night. I had to have my lung punctured and drained, and so there was so many things going on. And then it was, how on earth am I going to tell my parents in the morning that I have cancer after my mom's already had it? That was just worse than me having cancer, to tell them that. And I remember getting home that night, or early in the morning it probably was, and thinking, I'm going to die. Like, I've just been diagnosed with cancer. And like, to me, cancer meant death, basically. And that's what in the media, like, we see it as like a death sentence, basically. And I thought, I am 30 years old, and they say life, you know, flashes before your eyes. And I looked back at my life, and I was so sad that I hadn't done much with my life. Like, this is the end, and I haven't even done anything. No. What have I done with my life? And so definitely mixed emotions all over the place. I remember thinking, as I started going through the roller coaster that started of doctor's appointments, then saying, this too shall pass. I just kept telling myself that I have no choice right now. I just want to get through this and keep moving forward one day at a time. Eventually I will get through all this chemo. Eventually I will finish radiation. I can move forward with my life. So it was just, like, one of my favorite sayings is, you don't know how strong you are until you be.
Right.
So
absolutely.
It's definitely a realization that you have no choice. This is what you're going to do. You can do it. So,
yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that you chose to go with radiation and you chose to go this route because that's all that you knew about at the time. So can you expand on that a little bit? What other options there are?
absolutely. I have educated myself over the years. I've spent a lot of Google time on the internet, but I've also taken holistic nutrition health courses through college and stuff like that. And also just recently, a couple of years ago, got my certification as a cancer practitioner, holistic cancer practitioner. So those are tools that I use and to help people and give them advice. So, sorry, I lost it. What was
Like, other than just going straight into chemotherapy, is there any other pathway that you would have considered taking before you had gone into chemo? Because you said that that's all you knew at the time was chemo.
right?
And if there's any other direction you can take.
There are many options out there. Like, I've educated myself and done lots and lots of research, and there is a place in Mexico, Hope for Cancer Institute. They treat people all naturally who have cancer and have had great success. There are many other holistic options: the intravenous vitamin C, the Gerson therapy, B17, turmeric. There's many, cancer fighting holistic routes that you can go. And I hope it never happens to me again, because I definitely take care of myself. But I could honestly say I don't think I would do chemo and radiation if I was diagnosed again.
Wow.
There are so many side effects. The research on chemotherapy, like if you think of people who've gone through chemo, it's not a 100% success rate. It's actually very, very low. So, you have to basically ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you feel is right for you? If you feel it's right to do chemo, then you can go through that, but you can also partner that with holistic methods so that you have a better experience going through chemo and better quality of life going through that as well. So there's so many factors that can come into play, but I would suggest some people talk to someone who knows about it and research, ask lots and lots of questions, and do what you feel is the right choice for you.
I know I just lost a close friend to cancer, and he was doing chemo, and obviously, I don't get it. I don't know how tired you are. I don't know how sick you feel. I can imagine, but I can't appreciate how horrible it must be. But just to think that I'm like, I'll come to you. Well, I'll bring you coffee. I'll do that. Like, he's like, stop. He couldn't even explain how bad he felt. And it just sounds so horrible. And it's a horrible thing for me to think. At that point, are you kind of just wishing it was over? Like, you're in so much pain and you're so sick and he didn't want to be seen. And it was just so heartbreaking because it's like you're going through this to try and save your life, but while you're doing it, you don't have that passion for life because it's so horrible. And I think your mindset probably has a lot to do with your recovery. And if you're feeling that horrible and you don't want to see anybody and you can't go out and you can't do anything that you love to do, and I find that would give you even that more negative a mindset that would count against you, or it would make it tougher for you for that. Like, how do you feel about that? Is that why kind of the natural methods, do they make you not as sick or just make you more energetic while you're fighting stuff? Or is that the kind of way that you think that it would be more helpful?
Definitely you would have more energy because we have the science behind it to say what will give you more energy while going through chemotherapy, while going through radiation, because all of it will knock your immune system down. All of it will make you more tired. So there's other things that I would suggest that people do. Obviously, mindset comes into play, not just with cancer, but in all aspects of our life. Our mindset impacts everything. You're going through a cancer diagnosis and the doctor says you have cancer, you have 1 month to live or 6 months to live, your mind will be like, I got 6 months to live, and that's the focus. And you're like, I'm going to die in 6 months, I'm going to die in 6 months. You probably will.
Exactly.
And mindset is set to what the doctor said. So I wouldn't ask the doctor how much time do I have, because then your mind will pick up on that.
So yeah, exactly. So someone tells you, I would assume that you could take it either. And I think a lot of people do it that way. If you're told that you only have 6 months, who knows? Maybe you have 20 years. Like, who are they to say how long you have based on your mindset? But I'm assuming a lot of people would take it either way. They would try and like hit it head on, or they would give up and just try and enjoy those 6 months. And maybe they thoroughly do enjoy that 6 months, but then they only have the 6 months when they could have had 20 years. Like, it's just such a hard number to have in your head that, like, I'm surprised they tell anybody, to be honest. Because, I mean, whatever approach you take, it was your decision to take that approach. But yeah, I'd much rather just be going at it as I'm going to make it. And I don't care how long it takes, that just a little bit more positivity in the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, don't, if someone, I would say don't give me that diagnosis, first of all. But if someone does give it to you, then I wouldn't accept that if it were me. Like, it scientifically shows, like the stats show, that if people choose to believe a different outcome and say, no, I don't choose to accept that, I only have 6 months, I'm going to fight this all the way. I'm going to holistic methods. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to change my mindset, figure out why possibly this cancer could have happened to me, and change. If you're not willing to change anything, your diagnosis will probably stay the same. But if you are willing to change something in your life, because obviously whatever you've been doing hasn't been working because now you have this disease. So something has happened. And it's your choice to be like, what do I need to do? Number one. And two, am I committed to making this change in my life because I want to live?
Exactly. Yeah. So I know we talked about this a little bit before, and obviously, like, I know in my head why you're doing this, but what made you decide to learn more about cancer prevention? Or is it you just want to help anybody else who is in that situation, or was it more to prevent it from happening to you again?
Many things, many reasons why. Definitely initially started because I wanted to save my mom. And I just didn't know enough in such a short amount of time to be able to make those changes and help her get a better result. And then it became my passion. Like, I don't want to go through cancer again. Like, I've been through it. I watched my mom pass away from it. So I just wanted to educate myself and those around me if I could help them. And it just continued on and off over the years. I wasn't always 100% focused on it, but I had a friend of mine at 34, brand new baby. She actually had cancer when she was pregnant with her second baby. And I remember her coming to me and asking me, and it's so hard to give out so much education all in like an hour and be like, this is what I think you need to do, and throw a million darts at the dartboard, basically. Like, try to do all these things, and it can be overwhelming. And she went through chemo and everything, and I had left the province and gone somewhere else and thought she was doing okay. And then I had messaged her, and she said she wasn't doing great. She was in and out of the hospital, and things were pretty serious. And next thing I know, I got a message that she passed away a week later. And I happened to be back in Ontario and spent my birthday at her funeral. Landed on okay. And I remember thinking, why didn't I spend more time trying to get my point across to her? Maybe I could have helped her. I know her cancer was aggressive a year and a half earlier, but I thought it was okay. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I felt so horrible. I could have saved this person. And I don't know whether I could or not. I definitely don't listen to anybody. But that's when I was like, I need to get back to this and learn more. And I always want to continue to learn more. And I feel like it's my mission to talk about cancer prevention, because I think that's the key. Is we aren't doing all we could to prevent disease from happening in our bodies. There's so much simple things we could be doing. Just drinking more water in a day is such a simple thing that makes such a big impact, or exercising, movement. I want to help people. That's what it comes down to. And I don't want to see people that I know, or people, loved ones of friends that I have to go through this. So I just keep wanting to do podcasts like this. And
Absolutely. So from your point of view, what is the most important thing people need to realize when it comes to their health?
I think the most important thing is that everyone needs to realize that they are an individual. They are unique. 10 people can get diagnosed with the same disease. It doesn't mean that they're all going to have the same result. What works for me may not work for you. If I eat blueberries, and they are great for me as an antioxidant, but you might be allergic to blueberries. So I don't want, there's not an umbrella that fits everybody. And I think that's important for people need to realize. And it's not just about what we eat and what we drink. It's also the mindset and the emotional state that you're in. How stressed are you? Those are the things you want to look at. There's 3 main things I would say, like start listening to your body. Your body will tell you when something's wrong. You eat something, you don't feel good, maybe try eating something else that does make you feel good. Number 2, take care of your body and your mind. So make a conscious effort to have a positive attitude, and take a conscious effort to take care of your body as well. We all know when we're doing something wrong. So 3, change your vibration to a more positive, thankful one. It's a mindset shift to do this, but you can get into the habit of being more positive and do more things that make you happy. So that's a great way to raise your vibration and take better care of your health.
That's really interesting. I like the word vibration, because I kind of always just say stress, and I think just saying the word stress makes you stress. So vibration is a really nice word to get that point across. So when it comes to the things that you can do that will make the greatest impact, do you think it's more of a physical when it comes to stress and like everyday? We work in such a busy society now that's always in competition, and it just seems like you're always trying to strive to be on top and all that stuff. Or do you think a lot of it has to do nutritionally, or is it like everything has to be in balance together to be in that perfect health where you're preventing anything that can, pop up?
Well, I believe in the body, mind, spirit. It's more than just focus on the body. The mindset, the emotions all come into factor. Stress happens to us whether we want to or not. There's that come up in our life. We can't help that. It's how you handle it that makes the difference. And everyone's got busy lives. We're getting busier. So you have to find something that works for you. So if you like yoga, do that. If you don't like it, don't do it. If meditation relaxes you and de-stresses you, try that. If going to the gym, exercising is a great stress reliever. Try to get more active, and it doesn't have to be the gym. It can be going for a bike ride, going for a walk, grounding. It changes how you feel. There are foods that can give you more energy, or foods that will, like sugar, for example. We like the taste of it, but it's really bad for our body. So I think and I don't want to say balance. I really have a hard time with a balance. I don't think everything will be in balance all the time. But I think you just know, like I say, supercharge your life. And the theory is basically the disease is at the baseline, and you want to be on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you in body? Do you feel like you're taking good care of your body? Maybe you rank yourself high as a 10. If you know you're unhealthy and not feeling well, then you're going to be lower and closer to the disease baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the mind and your spirit. How happy are you? How positive are you? How much do you enjoy your life? And are you doing things that you are passionate about and you enjoy? Or are you miserable every day? Not happy at work. You're not happy in your relationship. And all these things can create disease. It doesn't have to be just that I eat a poor diet. I could eat a great diet and be stressed out and a miserable person. And that can lead to disease too. So I think it is a whole body approach. Look at everything.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like I'm a fairly trust me, I have a lot of stress in my life and all that stuff. But at the same time, I feel like I'm a very healthy person because I'll maybe go a week or so, like let's say vacation, or a really stressful time in life comes up, and then you let a few things go. You're not drinking as much water. Your diet you might be eating out more often, not making it to the gym. It's all the stuff that I normally do, and then I'll start to feel like poop. And in reality, when you really like, there's a lot of people that's their norm. And one thing that I love about these podcasts and stuff is I think that people might realize that they don't realize how crappy they feel. You don't, until you kind of make those changes in your life, you might not feel like you need to make the changes. But when you start, you go a month eating healthier food and getting a little bit more active, and you realize how great that feels, it's just hard to get a lot of people to take that step just to try. Even some people in my family, I'm like, I can't even imagine how you feel, but you don't realize that you feel bad. I wonder if people are convincing themselves that they feel good, or if they really just don't know what feeling good feels like. I just can't even imagine if I didn't have my health and working towards always making those better decisions for myself, even if it's not every day. That feeling of not feeling 100% is such a horrible feeling. And yeah, how would you encourage someone to make those changes?
Well, I wanted to say, there's a lot of people out there that are crazy busy and they're living an amazing life, and they might not know that they're unhealthy, but all you can do is plant the seed. Basically, if they come across one thing that says, how stressed are you, or how much sleep are you really getting? And they paused in quiet for minutes even, and really looked at their life. If you're not feeling great, if you're sleeping 2 hours a night and you're got caffeine coursing through your veins all day to try to stay awake, and you're working so hard all the time that you're skipping meals, you're not eating right. If you really look at your life, I feel like I can predict your future basically based on a couple things that you tell me. And I was diagnosed at 30. I never thought I would get cancer at such a young age, but I see it more and more happening all the time. And people are not conscious, I guess, like when you're younger, of how you're building the blocks that will lead you down one path or another. So whatever you decide now will determine what happens in your future. So the best time to start is now. And all you need is the willingness to make a change. Don't have a willingness to change, I can't help you.
Exactly.
That's basically where it starts.
So that is a question I have. When you you wanted to get tested to see whether you had one of those markers. So if you have one of those markers and you are I find when I hear a story about someone passing away from cancer and they're young, for whatever reason in my head, that's more devastating to me. It shouldn't matter how old you are. It's devastating no matter what. But if you have one of those markers and you do have a healthy lifestyle and you do take care of yourself, and is there anything else you can do to, is that just the best you can do to just take care of yourself and think positive, or is there anything else that you can suggest if you're predisposed for it?
I had wanted to get tested just because I was curious. I was kind of trying to decide what was going to be the best route for me. But on the other hand, like genetic testing, just because maybe you do carry that gene, it doesn't mean that you are actually going to get that for sure cancer. Genetic hereditary cancer is very low. I want to say 3% of cancers are genetic, but there's so much that you can do. And some basics are just avoid the sugar, avoid the pop, choose the fruits and vegetables. Organic is always best, so you don't get all the pesticides on everything. And drink lots of water. Then I would look at how active you are. Breast cancer risk goes down like 50% if you're active like 3 times a week, which is huge. Rebounding is fantastic for the lymphatic system, giving you more energy. It's basically jumping up and down on a trampoline lightly.
Interesting.
Fantastic for the body. Movement gets all the blood circulating. Then there's also the emotional side of things. People who are generally diagnosed with cancer are people like myself, like my mom, that were not someone who spoke up often about our emotions. We kept everything to ourselves. Didn't want other people worrying about us. And that is also, just that alone can generate disease. If something is bothering you, speak up about it, talk to somebody about it, get it out of your body, don't hold it in your body. Anger is another thing. If you hold grudges, you know, forgive those people, let it, don't hold it in. Learn how to manage stress that works for you. Like I mentioned before, do something that works for you and not necessarily an umbrella that works for everybody, because that's not the case. And just be happy. And if you're not, figure out why you're not happy and change it. And if you need help from someone else, reach out and ask for the help. And so like I said, it's a whole body approach, mind, body, spirit. You got to look at everything. You got to look at your whole past, you know, your life from when you were born to when you are now, and all the things that happened in your life, and what do you need to look at, what do you need to address, and then shift, pivot, move.
Yeah. For me, it's like the diet and nutrition and the activity and everything is very simple for me, but the internal stresses, the just dealing with things that's happened in the past, forgiveness, my goodness, I'm not very good at forgiveness. I'm one of those people, like, you wrong me, it takes a while for me to forgive, if ever. And I totally agree with you. It's absolutely toxic to my body. And if I'm going through a stressful situation and I can't forgive that person, or if I really take it personally, or if I feel like I'm being used, anything like that, everything falls apart. It's not just what's going on. I'll start having more glasses of wine, and I will skip the gym, and I will watch more TV instead of going out and riding my bike. It's like extremely toxic to me, and I don't think I really noticed that until I started going to counseling. So absolutely, if there's no one close to you that you feel like, I think a lot of people feel like maybe they're putting people out to talk to someone close and take up their time to talk about your problems, and that you may think are bigger than they do. Like, you just put all these things in your head of why you don't want to talk to, but my goodness, counseling makes a big difference, and you don't have to feel bad about it. You're paying them for their time. You have to listen to me. So it just made a huge difference. Yeah,
if you don't have someone that you're comfortable talking about something that's happened in your life, then by all means talk to a counselor, talk to someone that doesn't know you. You're comfortable talking to them. And it's funny, as you're mentioning those things like drinking wine, watching TV, you don't go out anymore, like those are all self-medicating ways that we deal with stress. And if you're doing those things, you know that you're avoiding the real issue. So you got to look and say, what am I avoiding? What do I need to actually address? Because this self-medicating can't go on the rest of my life. You know, procrastination is a self-medication as well. And detoxify your life. not just your diet. Like you said, it's a toxic life that are going on, and you can't forgive people. And while I was going through my treatments, I was in not a great relationship. I was put down constantly, and that was hard. And I almost made me like fight harder just to be like, I'm going to show you.
Absolutely.
And it took me years after getting out of that to forgive that person, not for them. I forgave them for myself. I think that's important people realize. It doesn't mean that you're forgetting that the person has wronged you. It just means that you don't need to carry that with you, because that's not good for your health. So you need to find a way to release it, let it go, write a letter and never mail it, write a letter and whatever you got to do, and just find a way to move forward, because I could easily go and make a list of all the people that have wronged me, hang on to that hatred and anger and stuff like that and not forgive. But even like all the things that happened going through cancer and losing my parents, like I can hang on to that forever, or I find a way to let it go and say I need to move forward with my life and not carry that with me like on my back as a burden for the rest of my life. I need to let it go. So
yeah, absolutely. Like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of forgiveness is, this is a negative way to think about it, is that you're saying it's okay for what they did to you. And that's not the case at all. It took me a long time to realize that, like you said, that it's for you to be able to move on, and forgiving someone for something that they did to you is in no way forgiving the act that they did to you, or saying that that's okay that they did it to you. It's just saying that it's not worth my time to worry about it anymore. Take care of yourself and not worry about them. So that kind of is a nice segue into what are you doing now to help all these women with, the experience that you had?
Yeah, well, I just put together Supercharge Your Life program, and it is working one-on-one with me. And I look at do a nutritional assessment. I also do a health history questionnaire, which is also a life history questionnaire. I want to know everything that's happened in your life to lead you to where you are now. And then we do online sessions so that people can live anywhere and we can work together on their specific issues for them. I'm also working on jointly with that an online program, Supercharge Your Life, which is not without the one-on-one component, but going through modules, and working on my cancer book, which I started many years ago, and my cancer story, and putting together everything I've learned. So it's going to be called What I Wish I Had Known Before I Had Cancer. And so I'm putting together like all the stuff that I find over the years has been helpful and works for people, and is a great tool for cancer prevention. Because if I had known these things, like my life could have been different, my mom's life could have been different, that kind of thing. So that's my mission right now.
That book title is ruining my last question, but you'll hear it in a second. It's my question for everybody. But so I'm going to have everything linked in the show notes and on my website and stuff. But where can people find you?
They can go to my website, is the best place to go, tanyawest.ca. And I have information about the Supercharge Your Life program on there. I have some blog posts on there. I have some freebies on there. So alkalinity is a very important thing in people's health. So I have like a cheat sheet fridge chart that you can print off and put on your fridge, showing you acidic foods and alkaline foods, and some tips on that. As well as 10, I think it's actually 7 tips for cancer prevention freebie on there that people can download as well. So, and if they have any questions, they can always contact me through the website as well.
Yeah, definitely check out the alkalinity. That was something I wanted to talk about, but this conversation has been going too smoothly and I ran out of time. But alkalinity is something that I studied quite a bit when I was doing my competition prep, because that's very, very stressful to your system, the way that you're treating your body at that time. Even though like the things that you're choosing to eat are all very healthy and stuff, but you're working out a lot, so you're creating a lot of acidity in your body, and it's so important to keep that alkaline, acidic, kind of balance going on in your body to keep you healthy throughout that whole process. And it comes into so many other parts of our life. Like the way I know it is through competition prep, but it's so important and so much more important in other ways than the way I was looking at it. So I wrote a bunch of posts on that too. And it seems to be, nutrition is so complicated nowadays with the flexible dieting, macros, and eat this, don't eat that. And it's just such a good chart of food. And when you understand the reason that you eat those foods in balance with each other, it explains everything else so much better. And it really pretty much emphasizes what we all knew from the very beginning is, choose food that's not from packages and that grows from the ground and doesn't have pesticides on it. And it's really so much more simple than what social media makes it out to be nowadays. It's just make healthy choices. And that's basically what you will see on the alkaline, on those charts is, well, this is all healthy food. Surprise, surprise, So yeah, definitely download that. When is your program coming out?
I'm planning for July.
Okay.
The online program. If someone wants to work with me, like I said, on the one-on-one, that they can do right now. So
yeah, and I'm sure if you download any of those freebies, that you'll get probably a reminder when those things are coming out, right? Perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect. And I'll post a reminder when I hear that it's coming out as well, because I think it's going to be amazing to work with you. And I love that you have the mind, body, spirit all together. I'm finding that's more and more prevalent nowadays.
Yeah.
Because for so long, it seems like people are just focused on physique. But if you focus on, this is how my website started, was basically do what's right and the rest will all fall into place. So if you just follow the basics, don't worry about weight loss, don't worry about health, don't worry about this. Just make the healthy choices. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and everything falls into place like miraculously. You're healthy, you look good, your hair's looking good, your nails are good, you have energy, like everything falls into place if you just keep it simple. So I love that you're just putting that all together.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did kind of mention that you ruined my question, but if there was something that you know now that you wish you knew 5, 10, 15 years ago, what would that be? I'm sure it's in your book, so I don't give away too much.
There's so many things. I definitely would say the biggest thing is to really take a real hard look at your life and be honest with yourself and say, am I healthy in all aspects of my life? And it's hard to do when you're younger. You don't want to look at things that you may have done wrong in your life, and like we said, hold on to the bad stuff that's happened. But if I could go back, I would say I definitely would have ate better. I definitely would have chosen better relationships that weren't so toxic to my mental state. Mm-hmm. And I would speak up for myself so much more with things that were wrong with me, and also with my emotions. It's hard for a lot of people to talk about their emotions and share, and we can rant and we can gossip and complain and stuff like that, but you have to really look at it even deeper and say, like, is this something that is really eating away at my life? And if it is, then it's time to do something about it. That is going to a counselor, hiring a health practitioner, something like that. You have to start early. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the most important thing is start as soon as you can, like changing your life. There are easy things that we can do to change our life. You just have to be willing to make the change.
Exactly. Start now. If you know something's wrong, start now. Yeah, awesome. I love it. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for your time today. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out. And I'm so glad that we finally got to speak in person. I know who you sound like. It's pretty cool. And I hope to have you on again sometime in the future. It would be great to have a chat about a different topic. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me again.
Awesome. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for taking the time to talk to us about your experience. I think your choice of title for the podcast, that was Survive or Thrive, It's Your Choice, was perfection. I feel like now, after hearing your story, if we get a diagnosis that is devastating and we have no clue initially what to do with it, it doesn't mean that we have to give up. It doesn't mean that it's over. It's not a death sentence, and it's the choices that we make every day, the research we do, the help that we reach out for, that will dictate how our recovery is. So thank you so much for that. And I also wanted to kind of bring up a little bit what we talked about after we stopped recording. So when we stopped recording, we had a little chit chat, and I asked Tanya a little bit of a personal question, because I did have that friend that passed away earlier this year with cancer. And it sounded like he was quite similar to Tanya's mom, where he didn't want to be seen. He was feeling really tired. He kind of almost seemed to be saying that he didn't want to be seen. And I thought it was more like because he thought he was being a burden. And I was wondering whether Tanya thought that maybe now that her mom's gone, whether she thought that her mom was really wishing that people would have just come and visited with her anyway. And I do feel a lot of guilt about that with my friend, because I felt like I was honoring his wishes, but at the same time, when time runs out and you didn't really get to hear you can hear through messages and stuff how they're feeling, but you don't really get the full spectrum of what they were going through, and you really regret not having been there for them. And so I asked Tanya whether, now that everything's over, whether she thought her mom was really wishing that her friends would have shown up anyway. And Tanya kind of agreed that her mom's friends more than likely felt the same way as I did, and that she does believe that her mom was trying to kind of lessen the stress on everybody around her, and like I said, not wanting to be a burden and not wanting to make it seem like she was complaining, and didn't want people to feel pity for her. But that in the end, if someone had shown up, she wouldn't have been upset about it. And that, to you guys, is one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't just show up anyway and, be that shoulder to lean on. So my advice, even though I have very little experience in this area, is that if you have someone in your family that has had this kind of diagnosis, whether they've just found out or they've been fighting for years, just be there for them, and don't let them think that you pity them. Just be there for them, to be the same friend that you always were. You don't have to talk about them being sick, and you don't have to, talk about memories or, something fun that will just lighten their day. So my advice to you, just so that you don't feel this regret any day in your life, is just to show up. So that was one of those things that we were chatting about, and we stopped recording. We were kind of giggling because it was really good information, and we wish we had still been recording. Thank you so much again, Tanya. If any of you want to get in contact with Tanya or want to be part of one of her programs, all of her information will be in the show notes. And I hope to see you guys all next week with my brand new guest, full of information that will help us experience our potential. Have a great week, guys.